Hello friends, in today's video I am playing one of the PVE modes in Naraka Bladepoint. I've played this mode, or the PVE rather, in the past. It is definitely not the same as it used to be. I'm not exactly sure when they changed it, because I know that they changed things in the PvP as well, because they have glyphs in the PvP, and I can't remember exactly what it was before, but it didn't work like that. With the glyphs, you only get a certain amount of points that you can allocate, and before it had similar things, but you could spend the in-game currency Tay to level up certain aspects a lot, and you could choose all of these aspects. So you could have 3 of the same luck. I think they were runes actually. I can't particularly remember, but yes, runes. I quite like adding luck to my builds. I don't actually know if it does anything, but I feel like ever since I changed that into my build for PvP specifically, my luck in opening stashes has gone up quite significantly. Because I was kind of confused as to why some players would have a really insane gear at the start of matches, because my friend and I would loot an entire location and we'd maybe have like blue armor, blue weapons, and then we'd come across a duo that has like yellow armor and yellow soul jades for their weapons, and they didn't necessarily have yellow weapons, but it was still like, what am I doing wrong? Because if I had better gear, I feel like there would be a better chance. At least if I had better armor. But I'm also not super skilled, so that's more of copium, I guess. Anyways, this particular mode is the Ruins mode. I don't really know how to say the first word, Nirriti. I really don't know, sorry. I am not good at pronouncing things that I don't know how to say, and I haven't heard anyone else say it. But it is, in a way, similar to, I guess, Gunfire Reborn. There's 15 levels, and in Gunfire you have these cards that pop up, and you can either use them for your skill or your weapon, or if you do some kind of elemental damage or something, and you can kind of build yourself up using those and what weapons you choose. And I feel like that's kind of similar to this. It is the one PvE mode where you don't need soul jades. In the other modes you have soul jades, and these soul jades are similar to the PvE, but they kind of do things a little differently, since you're stuck in the weapons that you use, and I'm assuming that people play differently, like different heroes. I've only really played Kurumi. This is who I'm playing right now. Kurumi was the first character I ever played in this game. She is the only support-like hero at the time the game came out. I think. Because there wasn't a whole lot, and I think some other people were added later, like Wu Chen and Zipping specifically. But now they have Syra as well. I think Syra's pretty fun, to be honest. I feel like she can get away with more, because with Zipping and Kurumi, you kind of have to rely on just being good at the game, because your abilities don't necessarily help you as much as other abilities. Specifically, like, Zai has this ability, and you can change how it kind of works, but she has an ability that you can press if you're being, like, stun locked. You can press it and you can get out of being stun locked, I believe. I know there's things called true combos, but I'm not exactly sure what those are, because I think some people will complain about being stun locked, but there's certain combos where if you're caught out, you're caught out. There's not much you can actually do to stop it, and I think that's why a lot of people find it pretty frustrating, because you can't really button mash in this game. I do it, but I really don't recommend it. I feel like you get caught in really bad positions, and maybe watching this gameplay, you may see how I kind of mistime things a lot of the time. You can counter the blue attacks in this mode, but you have significantly less stamina than other modes, because you can build up your stamina in the PvP. I am not super sure you can really do it in this. From what I've noticed, you can't, because you have this ability that is similar to countering, but it can help you dodge white attacks, since you can't dodge, like, you can't dash out of attacks indefinitely. You run out of stamina maybe like 2 dashes. So the diffuse, you can use it for blue and white attacks, but it's pretty useful for white attacks if you're in a position where you can't really get out. And it helps you dodge, and I'm not exactly sure. I know that there is a lot of cards that you can get specifically that maybe give you like regen or health or a special damage ability when you successfully diffuse. I will say that this game mode in particular has definitely helped me learn timing better for countering, and it's also made me more confident in trying to use it, because you really can't get away with not doing it in this mode. And Kurumi uses a katana. My katana looks like a spoon. I think it's really funny. And also the repeating crossbow. The repeating crossbow is probably the easiest ranged weapon to use, but since it's kind of continuously firing, it doesn't do the damage that other ones do. I usually don't use it unless there's an archer I don't feel like grappling up to, or sometimes there's these little flying bug guys, and it's like 2 hits to kill them. It doesn't take much. It's like killing a symmetric turret. And I'm basically trying to grind this mode. I'm playing the hard level, but I want to unlock the Night Scream mode. It's the next difficulty. Actually, I shouldn't say I need to unlock it. It is unlocked, and I can play it. But for me to have an easier time at it, I need to get my attribute level up higher. I think I need it to be at like 18, and I think I'm currently at 11. And I would say maybe every run it might go up. Actually, I think you need to do quests to get it to level up. So I think I'm at the point where I need to defeat 60 bosses. And that's like the kind of solo battle. It doesn't really include like the elite monsters. So I need to kill or defeat 60 bosses. I believe I'm at 50 currently, so I'm pretty close. I think you fight maybe 3 or 4 per run. And the purple zones are just the next zone. The yellow zones are the shop zone, and I believe it counts as a zone. So if I went in that shop at level 8 or 9, it would count as 10, and then the next one I go to would be 11. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go to the shop and then I'm still gonna have 6 more zones. You would have 5 more. And the zones that are purple but with like a reddish outline are the harder zones. And sometimes there's also a special zone, which I can't remember if I went into it in this one. I think I did. But it allows you to go and pick up a lot of Tay, which is what you use at the shop zone to either buy buffs, more resources, or you can buy more, I think they're called carved jades in this, and that is, I guess, their version of soul jades in this particular mode. A lot of this is probably going to be super confusing, but I want to talk about it. I think it's pretty fun. I think maybe for people who don't really like the PvP, might actually enjoy the PvE. I know I have a friend who I believe does prefer the PvE, and I think I know someone else who has played the PvP, didn't particularly like it, saw the PvE, and was like, maybe I will try it again. And there is also the red portals, which are the boss zones. In my recent builds, the cards that I've been picking the most have to do with the lotuses, which are the flowers that are floating around me. I'm curious to learn about them and use them as the recommended build that I'm going for in the other modes with the soul jades. Recommend having a lotus jade, and so I'm trying to see how they work and how I can use them and implement them into my gameplay. I think they just revolve around you, and you can spawn more depending on certain conditions, and I think for the jade that I'm looking for, it's like when you, in some cases, you will have an element bar because you're infusing your self with either ice, thunder, or poison. And I've been doing ice, but I don't quite have my soul jades properly, so I keep accidentally freezing myself. Because every time you... I can't remember if it's when you dash. It's whenever you're kind of creating element... I'm not exactly sure how to word this, but you have an element accumulation bar, and there are certain things that cause it to go up, and then there's certain things that cause it to go down. I don't have the right things yet, so mine just kind of consistently goes up, and pretty quickly as well, which is why I often freeze myself in other modes. But I think if I have this Lotus Jade that I'm looking for, it will take that accumulation and put it into the lotuses, and then it would attack the enemy. That's what I understand that it's supposed to do, and that is also what I am hoping it is going to do. I don't have to do this build that I'm looking at. I know there's other people who do other ones. They make their own and they are like top on the leaderboard. But I guess I don't want to get too lost in looking for builds when I don't even have the things that I need yet. And I'm not even close to being like a really high sense level. The sense level is basically the level of your soul jades. I think I'm around 800 at the moment. And the highest is like either 1,000 or 1,100. And so I'm pretty far away from that, and it's also a little slow going, I'm not gonna lie. But I feel like playing this mode in particular is pretty good for getting a lot of rewards. It is probably the longest mode in this, but it gives you a lot of blue soul jades, which help you level up your higher level ones, because you are not going to be wanting to use those blue soul jades at higher levels and difficulties. Well, in the PVE, there is something called Yama's Abyss, and it kind of reminds me of like the Spiral Abyss, I guess, in Genshin Impact. I haven't played a whole lot of Genshin Impact, but I do remember the Spiral Abyss. There's different floors you go on, except I think you can pick conditions or buffs in Genshin, but in this you don't. You defeat the enemy, and I think at the lower levels it is just kind of like easier or elites, and then it turns into bosses and it gets harder every time. But every time you clear a floor, all your, I believe your skills and your ultimate and your armor and your health all reset, so you start fresh. The highest I've gotten is gold 2. I just don't have the sense level or the skill to really go higher than that. Hopefully one day, as I do still plan to play this game. I also managed to finish the battle pass. I think I might have finished it a week after I said that I was grinding it. And I've just kind of been a little behind on things. I've been having a hard time finding times that I can film when things aren't loud. because certain times a day I am extremely tired, and it is hard to film during those times because I'm generally irritable because I'm tired, or I can't think more than normal. So I'm trying to find times where I can do these things, and I'm hoping to be on a more consistent schedule. I also had a lot of time to myself when I was posting more frequently, so I really didn't have anything else to do with my time during the evening. But as things change, I have more things that I'm working on and spending more time with people. I'm generally someone who's quite isolated, to be honest, so I have a lot of alone time. And so when people actually want to spend time with me, I want to make sure that I can reciprocate that. And also just trying to cultivate healthy and meaningful relationships. Though one of my bestest friends did gift me this game, and we play when we can. We play duos in this a lot. We duo in Overwatch. While I was filming this, I was also talking about how my cards, and specifically this one thing that I keep getting, it's called Survival Blessing. I'm not exactly sure where I'm getting it from. I'm not sure if it's because when you level up cards enough, you unlock like a blessing effect or an awakening, and it could be from that. But basically anytime I take damage, I start regenning my armor, which is pretty helpful since I get hit a lot. It's hard to make sure that I time things properly, especially since sometimes I just feel like my brain is on like a 3-second delay. My reaction time to things is quite terrible. And I'm using my dance emote. The cool thing about a lot of emotes in this game is that other people who have them can join up with you and synchronize. So both my friend and I have that emote, and we will often dance in the lobby beforehand. Because you probably wouldn't have seen it in my last video since I was just playing bots, but because I would insta-queue, and since it's just me and a bunch of bots, as soon as I'm ready, the timer goes from like 50 seconds to 15. But when you're playing a game against real people, there are bots in those games as well, but the lobby time, the waiting preparation time is usually longer. Because you're waiting for everyone to get ready and pick their characters, pick their specific abilities, pick their spawn point. I also had the most insane luck in the gacha the other day. There has been the Lunar New Year festival that has been going on, and it goes on every year, and they're always very generous with the things they give, and this specific gacha only really gives you purples and above, which I think is really nice. So I've gotten a lot of cool things from that, and especially since there are these Grand Wealth God bags that you can get in the lobby, or there's this, I'm not exactly sure what to call it, but it's like a waiting area if you're waiting in queue, or you're waiting for your friend to come on, or you just feel like hanging out there with other people. It's called the Fairyland Penglai or something like that. And you can play certain instruments. It's kind of like Guitar Hero, and people have songs that you can play. I don't think they have any like songs that would be copyright, but if you're interested in that, you can do that. There is a parkour jumping puzzle. You can get rewards from doing that as well. If you're in a justice chamber, which is I guess kind of like a guild or a clan, you can dig for treasure if your justice chamber has found or detected any treasure. There is also a dueling arena if you wish to duel. You can, I think there's another mode where you go into this like rolly ball and you try to collect as many coins as you can. And there's also this thing called the Castell Challenge. You can basically pick people up and create like a huge tower. I'm not exactly sure how you do it. I'm not sure if you're supposed to have 2 towers or not, because there was something floating in the air, and a few of my friends and I were trying to do it, because I guess you can get like an achievement or a spray or something, and we spent a really long time trying to figure out how it worked, because it didn't really tell you anywhere how it did work. And we ended up finally getting a tower that was high enough, but I'm thinking that maybe you need 2 towers. But basically you had to go places and pick people up and then bring them to this spot, and then hope that you didn't accidentally drop them, because if you dropped them in a certain place, you couldn't pick them back up, even though a lot of these people were AFK. I also want to mention that, actually, hold the phone. I forgot to finish my thought from earlier. I'm really bad at that. So, there are the red bags that will spawn every 15 minutes. You can only collect 8 a day, and they're just like these grab bags. You can get Tay or Spectral Silk, you can get weapon skins, character skins or outfits, or like a gacha lantern, the spring lantern, which is specifically for the Lunar New Year, or the Mirage coins, which are the coins that allow you to do extra challenges before each match to help you get more Battle Pass XP. And there's also the gold grab bags, which are specifically summoned by players. You can only summon them if you spend money on the game, and you get these special kites or something after a certain amount of real money that you spend, and you need 10 of them to summon this golden wealth god, and he does not stay for very long at all. So if someone summons one, you have to hope there isn't a whole lot of people in your instance, because it's really hard to get the 15 bags in one go. And I think some people don't realize that they've gotten all their bags already, because you can still pick up bags even though you've reached your limit. They just don't. You're just taking them away from other players, basically. And I got my 15, wasn't really thinking anything of it, opened them all, and realized I had 51 of the spring lanterns. And I was very shocked and excited. I think I actually, I didn't quite scream, but the gasp, I gusped. That is not the right word at all, but I was extremely shocked because the gacha gods are usually not kind to me, especially in Naraka. I get the same, Turkaji head accessory in almost every box I open, at least a mortal treasure box, because every box has different things available. But I was extremely surprised to have 50 of those, so I ended up getting, I believe, almost everything in the spring lantern pool. And then I was, I think, 11 boxes away from getting the guaranteed extreme. I'm not gonna lie, I wailed. Don't judge me. I was really close, and to be able to be that close to a mythic accessory, outfit, cosmetic, what have you, I feel like it's quite rare if you're not someone who spends a lot of money on those kind of games. I've spent some, but I try not to buy loot boxes a lot of the time, but I did this time because I was so close, and I also had a lot of discounts on the boxes anyways, so I felt like if there was any time for me to do it, now would be the time. So there is 2 extreme cosmetics in this specific pool, and one was the skin for the new character Lonnie. She's like a magician girl, or a skin for a pole sword. And the pole sword isn't terrible, but I think there's legendary soul pole sword skins that are a lot better and a lot cuter and more my style. And if I got the pole sword, I would have been pretty upset, I'm not gonna lie. I was really worried that I was gonna get that, especially since the last extreme cosmetic that I did manage to pull, and that was from kind of the base kind of loot boxes, the immortal treasure. Immortal treasure is pretty easy to get, since every level of cultivation you complete, you get an immortal treasure, and the base cultivation levels are pretty easy because it's use your ability, use your ultimate, complete 3 games. So it doesn't take super long to finish those specific ones. It gets a lot harder as you progress. I'm almost finished Kurumi's cultivation. I really want to complete it all the way because she always talks about the Omioji, and I think the Omioji is some kind of spirit or something. I'm not completely sure, so please forgive my ignorance. But she's always talking about the Omioji, and then if you complete her cultivation, I don't think you get a title, but you do get an avatar that's called the Omioji. I also recently started to play Guild Wars 2 again. I played it only a few years ago, I think. A friend of mine is really into it, or used to be really into it, they don't really play it a lot these days, but I've picked it up again and I made a new character and I tried to name myself Omioji, but it was taken, which I was like, dang. But then I guess it kind of makes sense because I feel like that's probably a word that is in a lot of animes and stuff. And I just ended up naming myself Rabbitusa. It was the only name that I guess was available. I tried like a lot of them. Maybe not all the ones that I usually use. I know that's my Overwatch name, Smiley Pyrus, is usually available in most games because no one calls themselves Smiley Pyrus. But I kind of wanted to get away from that, or not really get away from that, but I want to use different names, I guess. Plus, I think people are often quite surprised when, like, oh, what's Smiley Pyrus from? And I'm just like, oh, it's Miley Cyrus. And people are like, oh, I had no idea, but it makes a lot of sense. But I was surprised a little bit that Jouch was taken, because I feel like in a lot of games, Jouch usually isn't taken, but I guess the games that I did try to use it on were games that hadn't been out for super long, and I feel like a lot of people didn't really know about it or didn't really play them, so it was easy for me to get those names, because I was usually like the first one, well, not the first one to play, but I knew when certain games were coming out, and I knew what to expect and whatever. If that doesn't say how chronically online I am, I don't know what does. I will also say that each character in PVE has a martial skill, and I believe the martial skill allows you to do damage to the yellow bar, which is like, it's called Astral Aegis in this one, but basically once you deplete it, it'll stagger them and stun them for an amount of time before it will regenerate. And Kurumi's, I feel like, is really hard to lose, or hard to use. I'm so bad at always pronouncing things wrong or saying the wrong words on accident. I think it's because I'm like motor mouth and my brain is going like a million miles per second. I have to remember what I was talking about now. The martial skill. I believe it's when she, I don't know if it's when she counters, diffuses, or even just like blue attacks, but she will do her attack or her counter, and then she will lunge forward and slash, and it will do damage to the Astral Aegis, but then I feel like I'm caught in a weird place, because then I'm really close to them and my reaction time isn't the best, and I seem to always slash when they're just about to attack again, so then I don't have enough time to dash or diffuse. Maybe I do and I'm just not doing it well, or I'm not able to execute it or initiate my single processing brain. I often feel like I'm that one cat where you can like touch his paw or touch his tail, but if you're doing it at the same time, he gets confused and then he just kind of freezes. I feel like that a lot of the time. Or I think about this meme where it's like, I can have a conversation for 3 minutes and then I start taking physical damage. I feel like that's kind of like me in focusing. I can maybe focus for like a minute, and then I'm gone. Unless I'm in hyper focus, then anything is possible, I guess. I guess the rambling does kind of work for me though, because I am pretty good at rambling and going on tangents, and if I'm telling a story, it will go on forever. It will take me a really long time to get to the point, or the actual climax of the story, I guess. That's like, I think I can talk about this quickly enough, hopefully. Last night I was just working on some stuff, and usually I always have music or a stream or a YouTube video playing in the background. And especially if I'm alone, then I will often listen to things quite loudly. And sometimes I also try to up the volume on things so I can't really hear the people that are outside my apartment sometimes, because it does annoy me, I'm not gonna lie. But I didn't have anything playing because I was trying to clean up my computer and my files and update drivers and stuff like that, and my computer ended up just restarting itself at one point, and so I didn't end up opening too many things because I'm like, well, maybe it's gonna restart itself again. And I think it was actually rendering a video, and I kept hearing something really strange. Like, I was hearing a sound, but it wasn't super loud, but it was loud enough for me to be like, I hear something weird. I'm not exactly sure what it is, and I kept like doing investigations and doing like that thing where like you take off your headset for like a minute and then of course it stops, so then you're like, okay, I'm gonna put my headset back on, and then it would start up again, and I'm like, okay. So I went to my door and I just stood there and listened through the door because I initially assumed that it was my neighbor being weird, because it wasn't unlikely. He hasn't been super weird lately, but he's been weird in the past, and I'm not going to go into details about what the weirdness is, because being weird isn't necessarily bad, but it was kind of a bad weird. And so I just kind of assumed it was him. And I was listening at the door, didn't hear anything again. And then I went back to my computer, put my headset on, and then I heard it again. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put my shoes on and I'm gonna go investigate, because something is weird, and I don't know, I feel like I need to investigate this. And then I'm standing in the hall and I'm waiting to hear this sound again, and then I hear, help me, and then I'm like, oh my god, that is not good. And I'm a pretty introverted person. I don't really do well in social situations or talking to people, or I'm a very anxious person. So I'm just like, I hope it's nothing too bad, because I'm not really good at certain things, and I also have really bad phone anxiety. So I was kind of just like really amped up, and turns out one of the ladies that lives here ended up falling. It's pretty icy around here, and it's pretty easy to fall. I fall a lot. I'm terribly clumsy, but it's pretty easy to fall on ice. There's a lot of snow here. There's a lot of ice. The weather is really inconsistent, because it will be really cold, and then it'll be warmer, and then it'll rain or melt, and then it would be cold again, so everything would freeze. And so I'm not exactly sure what happened, because it was hard for us to communicate, because she's deaf and she doesn't She doesn't do sign language, but then she can't hear what I'm saying, and I don't really know how to enunciate my words so that she can read my lips. But I ended up calling an ambulance. I believe she's okay because I heard her later, a couple hours returning from the hospital. But that was a really kind of crazy moment because I remember like sitting at my computer and I'm just like, something isn't right. And I'm like, I should just see what it is. And I was right. And if I didn't go and investigate, who knows how long she would have been there, because she fell and there was a side door and the side door was open and it's really cold out, and she had been calling for help for, at least from what I noticed, like 5 minutes at least. I'm not exactly sure how long she'd been calling for help because she said that she was out there at like 7, but it was 7:45 when I found her, so I'm really not sure what happened, but I'm fairly certain she's okay now. But that was honestly a crazy day for me in multiple ways, and I'm not gonna say much more than that, but I think I'm proud of myself because, well, it feels good to be able to help someone when they need help or when they think that they aren't going to get the help they need. And also, where else was I going with this? Oh, I'm a really anxious person, as I said before, and a lot of the time my immediate reaction to things is I need to cry, and I could like feel the trembling in my voice as I'm like making this phone call and trying to make sure she's okay, but then also like not being able to communicate with her, not really knowing what I'm doing. And when I initially called, the dispatch lady was like, I can't hear you, and I'm like, well, I can't really hear you either, I don't know what's going on. But everything's good now. I'm glad that everything worked out. And I'm glad also that that day in particular just kind of, in a way, ended on a high note, because I wasn't having the best day yesterday, to be honest. But the horrors persist, but so do I. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe.